Morning, John. How are you, mate? I just wanted to start by thanking you for producing us on Friday too. Sorry, I forgot to do that. I'm not used to being in the hosting chair, so it just slipped my mind at the end there. So I thought I'd start by doing that. Thanks for that.
That was a good podcast with Gowie.
Oh yeah, cheers. Yeah, it was good fun. Good to chat to him. It was very timely as well. A lot of Penrith news last week with Taulungi and To'o. So. And obviously we're keen to talk to him about the Blues wrapping up that Origin series. So it's good to have him back on the podcast.
Later on in the podcast, we have the award for the dumbest comment on the internet with regards to Craig Gower. So.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. That sounds very interesting.
Meanwhile, this weekend it's me v you.
Yes, and you would have been Saturday night at Jubilee Stadium, Dragons v Bulldogs. Quite appropriate that they're doing battle. I think they're probably the two surprise packet teams of the season, both sitting inside the top 8 now. I covered their game against the Storm, the Dragons game against the Storm the other night. It sort of hit me there. Maybe we haven't talked enough about the Dragons this season, so thought we'd start off by talking about them. So the last time they beat Melbourne in Melbourne was in the 1999 final series, 34-10 at Olympic Park. That was on September 4 in 1999. And the other day was August 3, 2024 that they won. So that's 9,101 days between wins in Melbourne for the Dragons against the Storm. Bill Clinton was US president back then, and the number one song in 1999 in Australia was Mumbo Number 5 by Lou Bega. I'm sure you remember that one. Yeah. So, that's going way back. So that gives you an idea of how long ago. But well done to the Dragons. Outstanding performance, beating Melbourne in Melbourne.
I didn't watch it. Was it a good game?
It was. They just held them out. They just did enough to win the Dragons, and you did sort of feel like you were just sort of waiting for Melbourne to land that knockout blow and win the game, and you were just waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never came. So well done to the Dragons. A huge win, and that they've moved into the top 8. They're in 8th spot right now. The Bulldogs are 5th. The Bulldogs only one win ahead of them. Very, very interesting times. The Dragons now one win clear of the 9th place Dolphins. So are we now starting to see the top 8 start to break away from the pack? I know it's only one win, but until this week, it was only for and against separating those teams, 8th and 9th. So maybe we are just starting to see the top 8 take shape now.
Yeah, there's only 5 rounds left, 5 games left. Possible. When you see the teams that are sitting just outside the top 8 now, the Dolphins are on a slide because Wayne Bennett's now coaching the Rabbitohs. Oh no, he would never do that. But something's gone wrong with the Dolphins.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how he's devoted his time to coaching the Rabbitohs, and they've now slipped back to 3rd last on the ladder. So I don't know why he's spending time coaching them this year when they're no chance of making the 8. He really should be more focused on his Dolphins, who are now outside the top 8.
And you got the Raiders, who are also on 24 points.
Yes, and we will get to them a bit later. We're going to talk about them.
They don't look like winning anything.
Yeah, again, some really selective coverage of the Raiders, not holding certain people to account, but we're going to be doing that a bit later on.
And then after that, it drops to 22 points with the Titans and the Knights. So with only 5 rounds to go, it is possible that this is our 8. There can be some upsets. There can be some changes. We got hammered on TikTok for a video we recorded, I think, 3 weeks ago about how it was still possible for the Bulldogs to miss the game.
Look, this is the thing. I mean, we do this podcast once a week. We obviously react to the results over the weekend. I think the video you're talking about, and I saw a couple of them pop up on Instagram as well. We had that conversation after they lost 2018 to the Cowboys. We had a look at their draw, and there were difficult games to come. Before that game against the Broncos were heavy favourites. As it's turned out, the Broncos have put the queue in the rack for the year.
Yeah.
But look, that you got to keep in mind the context of when that conversation was had. It was had after they lost to the Cowboys. It was a game they could have won. It was a game they let slip away. The Broncos really didn't turn up that game at Suncorp Stadium against the Bulldogs. They were heavy favourites to win. So if you just think about it like that, if the Broncos had gone on to win that game as they were expected to, well, the Bulldogs would have been right under the pump at that point. As it's turned out, that didn't happen. They thrashed the Broncos and they've backed it up and beaten the Raiders at Belmore. So obviously now the Bulldogs are going to make the 8. It's just a matter of where they're going to finish. Look, I think it's highly likely they make the 8. A lot would have to go wrong for them not to make it now. They've got 11 wins now. They've got 5 games to go. They've only got to win 2 of the 5 to make the 8. So, all right, it's not guaranteed. But, look, it's highly likely now that they will make the 8, and I think we can say that now.
Yeah, anything is possible, though.
It's true. Look, it's true. As I say, they need to win 2 out of their last 5. It's possible that they don't, but it's highly likely that they will.
I mean, when you look at someone saying it's possible for them to miss the 8, it's the truth. It's a statement of fact.
Well, the only teams who
highly unlikely is a guess.
Yes, the only teams who have qualified for the top 8 are the Storm, the Panthers, and the Roosters because they're the only teams who have won 13 or more games. So we know that those teams are going to be there. We don't know for sure who else is going to be there, but I think we got a pretty good idea that the Sharks, Bulldogs, and Cowboys are probably going to be there at this point, even though they haven't confirmed their qualification for the finals. The Sea Eagles and Dragons in 7th and 8th spot. Look, I think we're not as clear about that, but as I said just before, the Dragons they're now 2 points clear of the 9th place Dolphins, so perhaps we are just starting to see a little breakaway, the top 8 teams breaking away from the pack.
It's if some upsets go the way of upsets, then 12 will be the number. Can be the number to also get into the 8.
That's the thing. The reason I say 13 is because last year when we had 17 teams for the first time in a long time, with the Dolphins joining the competition, is because the teams that won 13 or more games made the 8 last year. The teams that won 12 or less games didn't make the 8. So 12 wins, 12 losses was not enough to make the 8 last year. So that's why I keep talking about 13 wins being the target for teams getting in the 8. That doesn't mean that this year there won't be teams who win 12 and lose 12 and make the 8. 12 may be enough, but 13 is your guarantee. You need 13 to guarantee it.
And the Titans are the team that can ruin everything. They already... Last week, only Piercy tipped the Titans to win because it was the Titans versus the Broncos. Now I think Broncos are going to be tipped against by everybody because they're just ridiculous.
Well, they've put the queue in the rack. They're done for the year. And we will get to them later on as well.
But even this week, the Titans are the favourites against the Sharks. So it's still possible for the Titans to make the 8. It's just because you say it's possible, though, it doesn't mean it's likely. It's a thing in rugby league and I guess in all sports when you start talking about the maths of it, it's not likely.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
It is still possible for the Titans to make the 8. The Titans have a better points differential than the currently 8th place team, and they only need to win twice with the 8th place team to lose twice, and they'll be in the 8.
But this is the thing. Even the Broncos mathematically can still make it. They've got a...
Do they have a bye?
Actually, they've got a bye to come, don't they? Yeah. So, actually, given that they've got a bye to come, that means they can only get to 12 wins. But still, 12 wins, as I said, it could be enough. 13 guarantees it. The Broncos can still get to 12 wins if they win their last 4 games. Of course, they have a bye to come as well. But that's the thing. Again, you talk about possible scenarios compared with the reality. The way they're playing, there's really no chance of making the 8. Yeah. They're not playing well enough. There's a whole range of reasons why they're not going to make the 8, and we'll get to that a bit later on.
The Broncos look like they're going to confirm the Cowboys this week. That's what they look like they're going to do. They're going to confirm the Cowboys' position because the Cowboys will get their 13th win this week.
Yeah.
That's what the Broncos currently look like.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Bulldogs, they've finished all their buys, right?
Yes, they have.
Yeah, so that's why they have 5 chances to win 1 or 2 more games. So they're very likely to make that. It's highly unlikely. You'd be an idiot to bet against them now. But yeah, 3 weeks ago.
This is the thing. Going into that game against after that game against the Cowboys where they lost, where we had that conversation. You have to think about it in that context. At that stage, there were 9 wins, 8 losses going into a game against the Broncos, who'd just come off a win themselves, and it was at Suncorp Stadium. Again, where the Broncos were heavy favourites. So
in full strength for the first time in a long time.
Yes, so that was the context of that conversation. Obviously, now we're having the conversation again. The Bulldogs beating the Broncos, beating the Raiders. It's now a lot more likely that the Bulldogs are going to be in the 8 now than it was 2 weeks ago after that Cowboys game.
And I think actually one of the most pertinent points about that conversation is we were also talking about Bulldogs fans running out to buy grand final tickets.
We were, but we were also talking about Bulldogs fans themselves doubting whether they were going to make the 8 after the Cowboys game as well. Yeah. There was a lot of talk on forums and on social media from Bulldogs fans themselves questioning whether they were going to make the 8 after that game.
Well, that's one of the things about the Bulldogs fans, right? They lose to the Cowboys, they question it, and then a couple of weeks later when the Bulldogs have won a couple of games, they're all like, how dare you say they'll miss the 8? And like, bro, 2 weeks ago you were saying that.
Yeah, look, you just got to... I mean, you can only talk about what's going on at the present moment. Unfortunately, we'd all love to have a crystal ball and be able to tell what's going to happen in the future, but we just can't do that. We can only go on past results and what's just happened on the weekend and react to it and talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like the closeness of the... closeness of the ladder and the constant upsets and the difficulties in tipping this year have shown like week to week really like there's a lot of teams that you think like, oh, maybe they can make the 8, and then the next week, oh, they definitely can't, because there's so many teams that are getting like Dragons beat the Storm. You know?
Yeah, it was a huge upset.
Like,
nobody would have picked that.
Yeah, and
nobody would have tipped the Dragons to beat the Storm. Why would you have tipped the Dragons to beat the Storm?
What was the other one last week? The Eels won. Like, did anyone tip the Eels to win last week?
But yeah, I mean, I guess doing this, we just got to accept there are going to be times where we might say things that, if you look back on them a couple of weeks down the track, they might not look so smart. That's just... All part of doing a podcast like this. Nobody
would have tipped the Eels to beat the Warriors either. And then now that's caused, like, last week when the Eels went before that game, you would think the Warriors were a good chance of the 8. You know, and now that they've lost to the Eels, you just think the Warriors are going to miss the 8.
Yeah.
Week to week right now, there's so many weird upsets and things that can change the entire ladder. People should go play with the NRL ladder predictor and see how it's like.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. 2 weeks ago, the Bulldogs didn't look like they were going to, or looked like they could. There was a real chance of missing the 8 after that Cowboys loss. But now we're talking about them as a potential top 4 side. Yeah. So that's how quickly things can turn around if you put back-to-back wins together in this competition.
Yeah, exactly. And they got the Dragons this week, and it'll be really funny because Bulldogs, they've only won.
But that's the thing. If that, and I don't want it to happen, and I know the Bulldogs are favourites to win this game, of course. Well, they're not huge favourites. The Dragons have just come off beating Melbourne, but they are, with the bookies, they are favourites to win.
Should be.
But, you know, if they drop that game, well, all of a sudden, the pressure's on again. So again, we don't want to... You know, we don't want to jump the gun here. We don't want to jump the gun too much.
And Bulldogs aren't performing well away from home as well. Like, that's the other thing. They're not performing well away from home.
They're not. Look, I think if the Bulldogs beat the Dragons, you go, all right, they're in the 8.
Yeah.
But if they lose, well, again, the question marks come again.
I think they would still make the 8, given the fact
that they probably would. They probably would still make it.
They have 4 home games to finish out the season.
Yeah, they probably will make it either way.
3 out of 4 home games, and they're winning every game at home. So,
but put it this way, if they want to make the top 4, they've got to beat the Dragons this week.
Yeah. So...
Anyway, we'll get to that.
Meanwhile, during the game, I didn't watch that game either. I actually realised after the weekend I didn't watch a single game of football this weekend. First time in forever. So Michael Ennis seems to have a bone to pick with the Bulldogs.
It just watching the game, I know he used to coach the Raiders. It was just a very pro-Raiders commentary from Michael Ennis.
He used to coach the Raiders?
Well, he was one of the assistant coaches at the Raiders, yeah. He did help Ricky Stewart. But he just seemed to be overexcited whenever the Raiders put together a good play. He talked up Ricky Stewart at every opportunity. And towards the end of the game, he kept going on about how, if the Raiders win this game, they'll be level with the Bulldogs on points on the ladder. And you go, look, ifs, buts and maybes, they didn't win the game, they lost the game, and now they're 4 points behind the Bulldogs. We could talk about ifs, buts and maybes all we want, but that's the reality of the situation. It just upset me as a fan of the Bulldogs. He seemed to be hoping that a club he captained to a grand final in 2012 at their spiritual home, he seemed to be hoping that they would get beaten. He seemed to be happy at different times when the Raiders would score a try or the Raiders would look threatening, look on the attack.
There's I actually see Facebook memories all the time for comments like this that I have made in the past about certain commentators and how biased they are. It's kind of a little bit weird, actually, for someone like Michael Ennis, who played at 38 clubs, 38 out of 16. To have a preference is a little bit weird, and I wonder if you asked him. You talk to someone like Josh Reynolds, who played at the Tigers and the Bulldogs. Yeah, he's a Bulldog. Right, that's the thing. He's the Bulldog. He's a Bulldog. He works at the Bulldogs and stuff like that, and he's a Bulldog. And it's like James Graham is the same. He played at the Dragons and wherever it was in England he played for, and Wigan or something, I don't know. And
St Helens, I think, maybe.
Yeah. And the Bulldogs. He's a Bulldog. But I really wonder, with Mitchell Pearce, not Mitchell Pearce, sorry, Michael Ennis, which what club is he? He's an ex-Dragon. He's an ex-Bronco, Shark.
Yeah.
Did he play for the Knights?
Look, yeah. Look, I think if you were to ask him, I think he would probably call himself a Shark because he won a premiership at the Sharks. But that having been said, he spent most of his career at the Bulldogs and he was captain of the Bulldogs. So, yeah, watching that, it felt to me like, gee, he really wants the Raiders to win. You can hear it in certain commentators. Sometimes you can just hear it in their voice that they want one team to win over another one. I could really just sense that he really wanted the Raiders to win. I'm guessing that he's mates with Ricky Stewart like everyone else, and he was talking up Ricky Stewart. Why? I don't know. The Raiders are outside the 8 again, and with a tough run home, which we're going to get to a bit later, I don't see the Raiders being in the 8 this year. And yet he's been re-signed until 2029, but anyway, we'll get to that a bit later. But just really disappointing from Michael Ennis. I thought he was better than that. I didn't think he would allow that sort of bias to come through on his commentary.
Well, you got to remember, guys like Michael Ennis are just ex-football players. They're not commentators. Obviously their new job is commentators, but they're ex-football players. So when you have expectations of them to be non-biased, but really they're ex-football players. So they don't have the media ability. So when you look at someone like Anthony Maroon is one of the commentators on Triple M, and I think he does Fox as well, or maybe Channel 9. Anyway, he's a diehard South supporter. But when you watch the South game with him, he's completely non-biased. But it's because he's a professional commentator. I think what's his name? Rabs was a massive Tigers fan. He'd get excited when the Tigers would go. But that's the thing. I don't know, but I vaguely remember him mentioning it once. Him being asked who are you actually a fan of, and I vaguely remember it might not have even been him. But you don't know because he's so non-biased.
You got to put that to the side. Yeah. If you're commentating,
if you're a professional
commentator, you got to put. But it's sort of made it with the fact that he's got such a long history at the Bulldogs. Again, a former captain of the club, and again they were at Belmore. There was a full house at Belmore. They've finally come good after years of struggles. They've come good again, and as a fan, I found it disappointing. This is one of our favourite sons. And he seems to have turned on the club on this occasion.
Well, maybe he has a sliding scale. So it's if it's Newcastle against... He played at Newcastle, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Newcastle against the Panthers, then he'd be biased against Newcastle. But if it's Newcastle against the Bulldogs, he'd be biased. He'd be biased for Newcastle against the Panthers. If it's the Bulldogs, he'll be biased for the Bulldogs. But if it's the Raiders, then he's biased for the Raiders. If it was just Sharks versus Raiders...
Yeah, you might have a point there.
But even then, I prefer my commentators to be non-biased, except in... State of Origin, where I want the non-biased commentators, and then the Andrew Johns and Cameron Smith chime-ins. In that one, I want the thing. And if they're but that's the thing, like for State of Origin, they get Andrew Johns and Cameron Smith. If they're going to have like Michael Ennis, who is like a Raiders, like he's a good commentator to pick for the Bulldogs and the Raiders, because did he play for the Raiders?
No, but he
coach there or whatever.
Coach,
so you would think he could sit in the middle, but if he can't, then you want the alternate. You want an ex-Bulldog there. So they should add Josh Reynolds on there to counter Michael Ennis. Like, it's just the thing. You want the counter, and it's that's good showmanship actually. That when Joey gets to chime in on the Origin, and then Cameron Smith gets to chime in as well. It's awesome to hear the alternating view, like the abject depression from one and the like abject cheer from the other. But when it's in like just a regular game, you have one commentator only that is biased to one side. It just makes it frustrating to watch. Yeah, I get this like yearly when the Sharks were with Greg Bird and Paul Gallen, and Phil Gould was like really in love with the Sharks. I got a Facebook memory really regularly about him just comment. There was a game where the Dragons were smashing them. I think they were up by like 20 points, and I like Gus was saying how the Sharks are in this, and they're actually on top, and the score doesn't show it. They're actually, really winning the little battles, and they could still win this. And there's like 10 minutes to go, and they're down by 20.
Probably wants to keep you watching and doesn't want people to switch off.
It was like so biased, but then there's like weeks in a row where he did that. It was back when Greg Bird and Paul Gallen were playing for the Sharks. So yeah, it's. I said I didn't watch any of the games, but now I'd be interested to watch a game with Michael Ennis commentating against the Bulldogs now if it was like the Sharks. I'd be really curious to see, and if it's like...
But I think if you asked him... And look, I say that as someone... He was one of my favourite players. So I'm not... You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be deliberately controversial here, but it was very glaring to me who he wanted to win by his commentary, and I thought, well, it's my job here to, if I see something like that, well, I need to call it out on here.
Yeah, you look at his Wikipedia: Knights, Dragons, Broncos, Bulldogs, Sharks. Yeah. Oh my God, he was everywhere. Oh, he's born in Coffs Harbour. Okay. Still on that game though.
Yes.
There was a whole bunch of stuff about that game, right? So. Somebody asked me yesterday, like, did you go to the game on the weekend? And I told them I never go to Belmore games. I try to avoid it unless I have to for work or something. I used to live in Belmore, and we would, basically hide in our house during Belmore games. And there's all those memes all the time about the Bulldogs fans where it's like, if we lose, we riot. If we win, we riot. And... Saturday's game, was it Saturday? Sunday's game really highlighted why those memes and comments and stuff come out with the Raiders drummer guy getting accosted after the game as he was walking back to his car. And that's one of the big issues I have with the Bulldogs that going to Belmore, if I was like a Dragons fan. You have to walk so far no matter what with everyone, and there's no security or anything because you're on the street. And so I've watched the videos, and I've seen all the hot takes on the internet, and that's what we'll get to. So the Raiders drummer guy dressed in full drummer gear was basically surrounded by Bulldogs fans, and accosted and then tackled to the ground. Apparently he was hit in the head with a stick. All he was doing was travelling to his car. Now, the guy goes to every single Raiders game, actually. Every single Raiders game, away or home, travels, New Zealand, everything. And Bulldogs fans accosted him after... Like, they won. And, we talk about Queensland being sore winners. I'm not saying that it's an excuse if they had a loss.
Oh, you mean sore losers with Queensland?
I mean, Queensland sore losers and sore winners. Bad winners and bad losers. And... I'm not saying it was okay for them to accost the guy out if the Bulldogs had a loss, but they won. So why are they bringing down... It's even worse, I think, because they're bringing down, like, a celebration.
And this is the thing. You notice how when they were playing Belmore games when they were struggling, it's one thing for the Bulldogs to play the Titans at Belmore when they're third last on the ladder or whatever, and they get 5,000 people at the game and no one really cares. It's another thing for them to play at Belmore when they're flying, when they're in the top 8, when there's a full house there. That's where the issues seem to arise. Again, they've just come off 7 straight seasons outside the top 8. We didn't have these problems when they were outside the top 8 because the crowd numbers weren't there. And look, let's be honest, when your team struggles for that long, people just stop caring. They just stop caring.
Absolutely.
That they start winning again, and now this problem arises. So this is an issue for the Bulldogs now. And this is, we talk about, everybody talks about, we love to see the suburban grounds. But this is an argument against the suburban grounds. This is an argument of, this is why they've got to go and play at Accor Stadium. Yeah. Because this doesn't happen at Accor Stadium. It doesn't. It hasn't happened at Accor Stadium. It has happened at Belmore. It did on the weekend. So this is something the Bulldogs are going to have to watch out for. This is the last thing they want. This is a good news year for the Bulldogs. Their turnaround has been the story of the year. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody. We all had them outside the top 8 at the start of the year. This has come out of nowhere. We really don't want some unsavoury incidents involving a few fans after a Belmore game to really sour this season for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's terrible. And like the Bulldogs always try to promote that whole family club. They want, their community club and all that kind of thing. And I know Aaron Warburton, he's obviously come out straight away and made a statement saying, like, basically this is not on. Now they're talking about making the Belmore games member only, but I don't think that will make a difference. Because, I lived in Belmore when the Bulldogs played the Rabbitohs in the grand final. That was back when they were actually
2014,
top of the world, right? And the community is insane, actually. Like, not in a bad way. Like, it gets really, like, crazy. Like, it's how invested everyone is. Like, we saw dudes who had spray-painted Go Bulldogs on their car and stuff like that. And so even making it members only, I don't think it'll make a difference because the community, the people still come out into the streets. And it doesn't matter who you are, what game you go to, what sport, what anything you go to. Opposing fans have a right to attend. Like, that's it. There's no argument for that. And this is so that's what I mentioned I was going to get to. Like, I've been monitoring the, comments on it, obviously. I'm in some Bulldogs, like closed Bulldogs fan Facebook groups. I won't name the names of the people and stuff, but there are guys there, like, they comment, they post the videos in there and on Reddit and stuff like that. And then some of the people reply, and they're like, their reply is, he shouldn't have been walking around in Belmore dressed like that. And they're like, that's madness. He has every right to go and... the Raiders are there. He has... Man, if the Dragons were there, he has every right to go and wear the Raiders gear. And
this is the thing. This is the other point to make, is that this happened against an out-of-Sydney team where you wouldn't think that having sort of rival clashes between fans would be that much of an issue. This week they're playing the Dragons at Jubilee Oval. What's going to happen after that game, John? I mean, if that's what happened after a Belmore game against the Raiders, what's going to happen after the Dragons game at Jubilee Oval? That's going to be madness.
Cogra is just as bad with the parking and all that kind of stuff, and it's a sellout. And yeah, like I said, man, if it was the Bulldogs versus the Titans at Belmore, and the dude wanted to walk around in his Raiders gear, he's allowed. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I've just seen all these responses. Seriously, people like trying to justify the behavior, saying, everyone was really peaceful until that guy walked through. Like, end.
Yeah,
and there's also videos out of them, like, people shaking buses and stuff like that.
And someone did it to a van, didn't they?
Yeah,
I saw that.
It was crazy. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's insane at Belmore when there's things. Like, that's why I try to avoid going to Belmore games. But the simple fact is, the behaviour is unacceptable, and you don't need to behave like that. And this is a regular season game.
That's the other point. They're doing this after they win a regular season game. What's going to happen if the Bulldogs go deep into the finals, win finals games? Who even knows at this point? Win the grand final this year. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm saying it. Now there's a chance of it happening. I'm not saying they're the favourites to win it this year, but it is a chance of happening now. A chance.
Yeah.
Imagine what the reaction is going to be in Belmore after that. If they're carrying on like this after a regular season game.
That's the mean. If we lose, we riot. If we win, we riot. It's Bulldogs fans. And here's the thing, right? Actually, this kind of thing where fans are idiots happens in almost every sport. Obviously not in yacht racing or equestrian, or polo, but in almost every sport. Okay, and there is almost always, and it's not even like limited to like one particular team. There are always issues with fans in sport, but it happens more with the Bulldogs. Unfortunately, Bulldogs are the like the hotbed for it, and it happens more with the Bulldogs in Belmore. And so they want to have after the game, before all this came out, the comments were they should expand Belmore. They should invest money in Belmore because this year 18,000 people packed Belmore. Last year 5,000 people.
That's the thing. I think the full house. With them going really well, that hasn't helped this situation.
Yeah.
This wasn't happening. This wasn't happening when they were finishing third last on the ladder like they did last year.
So in actuality, based on the outcome, they should be playing more games at Accor and less at Belmore.
Well, this is the real argument against the Bulldogs being at Belmore, and I'm sorry to say that, I really am. But it's a valid argument. It's a valid argument against them playing games at Belmore.
That's why you can't have nice things, basically. Like you got to take the nice things away from all the kids because some kids break it. And it's terrible behaviour. There's no justification for it, but I've seen people on the internet trying to justify it.
And it ruins it. We don't want to be... We really don't want to be talking about this. We want to be talking about the great turnaround they've had on the field this year. But we have to talk about it. And
what's the other one? The other justification was, it's only a few people who are bad.
I can't stand that argument. I can't stand that argument because a few people can cause a lot of trouble and a lot of drama. It only takes a few people to cause a lot of drama.
Exactly.
So you could get 99.9% of Bulldogs fans who behave well, but that 0.1% who misbehave, that they can ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
That's enough to ruin it for everybody.
I also one of the things I have a big issue with in life right now and everything is the propensity for everyone to just pull out their phones and start filming. Why? I know there's a fear for safety, but why aren't other Bulldogs fans saying leave the guy alone? What are you doing? So why do they have to pull out their phones and start filming? And in the videos, there's thousands of people around, and it is 0.01% of people are accosting the dude, and there's 1,000 people around him, and then 50 people pull out their phones and start filming. Why don't if 50 people go oh, he stopped that, and these small 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or even 10 guys turn around, there's 50 people going, oh, he stopped that, they'll stop it. There's 1,000 people there going, just stop that, you idiots. They will stop it, and but again, they shouldn't have to. People just shouldn't behave like that. Everyone has a right to attend every game. The Bulldogs fans don't own Belmore Stadium and the rights to the Belmore Stadium. Just like Dragons fans don't own the right to Cogra Stadium and Canberra fans don't own the right to whatever the hell it's called now, GIO, Canberra Stadium.
Yeah, GIO, yeah.
Anyone can go there. It's more likely that home fans will go there because it's close to their homes. But everyone else has a right to go there. That's the thing. You can't use stupid things he shouldn't have been walking there in his clothes. He's going to watch his team play. He goes to every game. It's never happened to him before. He said he's been to every game for the past 40 years or whatever. It never happened to him before. Also, by the way, guys, his wife is a Bulldogs supporter and he lives in Belmore or near Belmore. So what are you doing? Do you think that guy's happy with his whole entire community now? And
Braithen Astor on NRL 360 said, that they were talking about, the Bulldogs being at Belmore, the full house and everything. And Braithen Astor said, this shows, the Bulldogs are the most passionate fans in the competition. And, that may be the case, but this is an example of the passion really spilling over into a very ugly situation.
It also kind of shows Bulldogs fans can be the most idiotic fans in rugby league. Like I said, it happens in all sports and can happen to all teams except for yacht racing.
It just annoys me. I mean, most Bulldogs fans are good people who'd never do that sort of stuff. But this extreme minority of people just ruin it for the rest of us.
And I hate suburban grounds. I hate the hill. I hate everything about
that. That's the thing. That's the other point I was going to make is I didn't go to the game on Sunday. I've been working a lot lately, a lot of different jobs, and I just needed a chill out day, and I didn't want to do anything on Sunday. But I sort of thought, on one hand, I thought to myself, oh gee, it'd be great to be there. But then I thought, on the other hand, well, do I really want to be packed on a hill where I can't move? Do I really not want to be able to go to the toilet if I need to go to the toilet? Do I really not want to be able to get in line and get a beer if I want to get a beer or something to eat? Do you really want to be going through that on a lazy Sunday afternoon where you just want to chill out a bit? I don't know if you do. I think maybe you're better off sitting on the couch and watching it on TV.
I reckon I'm actually going to the Dragons Bulldogs game this week because I was gifted some Legends Club tickets, thanks Mytronics.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, me and my wife are going to watch. She's a Bulldogs fan. Gross. That's look, it's not going to happen, right? But imagine the Bulldogs drummer gets accosted by the Dragons fans after that game. Like and that's the thing. You sit there and go, it's not going to happen. Bulldogs fan might cause some issues, especially if there's a Jamie Soward on Jamal Idris Milkman. But I was at that game too.
Yeah.
We left really early. It'll be an interesting. The whole thing's going to be interesting on the weekend. Like they're talking about live bands and all that kind of thing, and as I said, they're talking about only allowing members there and stuff like that at Belmore now. And to be honest, I think there should be live bands, but it won't make actually a lick of difference while it's at somewhere like Belmore. Because the community is insane during that period. It's Mardi Gras when there's a big Bulldogs event at Belmore.
This is they are going to have to look at, are they going to keep playing games at Belmore? That they're going to have a look at that if this...
fans are immediately calling for millions of dollars from the government to upgrade the stadium so they can get it to 25,000 people so they can play finals games there. After one win. One good year. Yeah, show 20 years of good attendance and maybe you can do that. Be like the Tigers fans who attend Leichhardt forever, no matter what. And then maybe the Bulldogs can get an upgrade. But yeah, it's nonsense. I hate Belmore Stadium. I'm involved with the Bulldogs. I said I know Aaron Warburton. SmartB is involved with the Bulldogs. I attend Bulldogs events, but I hate Belmore. I hate it so much. I don't go there if I don't have to. For games. Belmore, I used to live in Belmore. I loved living there, but
that full house and being on the hill, I don't know about that. You're cramped in and
that's gross.
You can't move anywhere.
That's why I would never go to Cogra for a sellout game because they started announcing everyone has to stand up on the hill. It's one of the things that happens, legit at Cogra. I don't know about other hills, but I've only been on the hill once. At Cogra in a full house, and it was everybody has to stand up over and over and over again. The ground announces. So I never bought anything but allocated seating again.
Yeah, there are downsides to the small suburban grounds. There really are. I know people hate watching games at Accor Stadium where there's 15,000 people in an 80,000 seat stadium. I get that, but at least at Accor, you don't get these sorts of issues. You just don't. When have you heard of this happening at Accor Stadium? Well, it just doesn't happen at Accor Stadium.
It's too big and there's too much security.
Yeah.
Now we can discuss the Raiders. Ricky Stewart's Raiders, who are definitely going to miss the 8. I bite my words in bite my tongue in a week or whatever. I eat my egg on my face. They got Sea Eagles this week.
Well, they got Manly, the Cowboys, the Panthers, the Roosters, and the Dragons as their run home. So those are all teams who are currently inside the top 8
and
that they've got to play against.
It doesn't matter whether they're home or away because they can't win at home and they can't win away. They've got the Sea Eagles and Panthers at home and they've got the other 3 away, but it's irrelevant. You just look at it. So they got the 7th place, 6th place, 2nd place, 3rd place, and 8th place teams. And they're 10th.
They're 10th with 9 wins and 10 losses. So as we've talked about, 13 is the number of wins needed. Well, if it is 13, they need to win 4 out of 5 against those teams, or all current top 8 teams to come. I don't see it happening. And let's remind ourselves that in 2021 they finished 10th. In 2022 they finished 8th and got hammered 40-4 by Parramatta in week 2 of the finals. In 2023 they finished 8th and lost in week 1 of the finals. And yet Ricky Stewart gets re-signed until 2029. Go figure.
As per Vic. Oh, hi Vic. We'll talk about you later. Teflon.
He's been having a bit of a go at you, Vic.
Yeah. He's hammering me. Teflon Raiders. Teflon Ricky. He can do no wrong. It doesn't make any sense. And the Raiders are most likely going to miss the 8.
Yeah, and I talked about how Michael Ennis was saying towards the end of the game, if the Raiders win, they'll be level with the Bulldogs on points. I'd love for someone to go to him after the game and say, yeah, well, they lost to the Bulldogs now, and now they're 4 points behind them. So what do you think about the Raiders now, Mick? You know?
I can't see them winning another game at all. Well, they could beat the Cowboys because the Cowboys are a bit erratic.
That's the thing. They got close against the Bulldogs. It was a good game.
Everyone's getting close against the Bulldogs.
But who cares? If you don't win, nobody cares. You have to win the game. If you get close to winning, what good is that?
I swear to God, the Bulldogs have had the most close games this year.
They have. It's unbelievable the number of close games they've had. I might just quickly.
And they can also beat the Dragons because the Dragons are erratic. But you can't see them beating. Probably not the Sea Eagles this week. They definitely won't beat the Panthers, and they definitely won't beat the Roosters. And the Panthers are now with the Dragons beating the Storm. The Panthers are now really in the hunt for that minor premiership. Like last year, they had the chance to rest a bunch of players, but then they had the chance to win the minor premiership, and they took the chance to win the minor premiership. So it's important to them. So the Panthers are going to come out and hammer the Raiders. They're going to look for points. They're going to look for, so the points differential, Panthers are well ahead only 5 points ahead of the Storm right now. So the Panthers expect for the next few weeks for them to be hunting crap tons of points, trying to boost that differential and trying to get another win over the Storm.
I really can't see the Raiders winning 4 of those last 5 against those opposition teams.
Exactly.
All current top 8 teams that they've got to play against. You were touching on it before, the Bulldogs' margins this year. I'm just going to go through some of them for you. They lost to the Rabbitohs by 4, beat the Roosters by 4, lost to Melbourne by 2, beat the Tigers by 8, lost to the Panthers by 6, lost to the Raiders by 4, beat Parramatta by 4, beat Cronulla by 1, that was in Golden Point, beat the Warriors by 1, that was in Golden Point, lost to the Cowboys by 2, that was that game we were talking about that was only a couple of weeks ago. Beat the Raiders by 4. A lot of games with very slim margins for the Bulldogs this year.
Yeah.
But, I don't care that the Raiders got close to the Bulldogs. The fact is the Raiders lost, the Bulldogs won. That's it. That's the end of the story. The Raiders now look like they're going to miss the 8 this year. Nobody cares if you get close to winning. If you don't win, well, it's too bad. A loss is a loss.
Yeah, it's irrelevant. They also have a terrible points differential, the Raiders, at minus 75. Even if they manage to get into that 26, 27, 26, 28, 30 type points, you don't see them getting in anyway.
So it's going to now be 11 seasons without a premiership for Ricky Stewart at the Raiders. Only made 1 grand final. And gets re-signed until 2029.
While Brad Arthur gets sacked.
Until the end of the decade, he's re-signed.
On another underperforming side, the Broncos, man, they've really just gone.
Yeah, and just these excuses that Gordon Tallis is making for Kevin Walters. I mean, clearly they're good mates. Obviously, they played together. But you can tell that he's trying to make every excuse under the sun for Kevin Walters. The other night he was talking about how it's such a young side that they've got. Yeah, but they made the grand final last season. Youth is only an issue if they haven't played in big games before. This is a team that got within a whisker of winning the premiership last year. So you can't tell me that youth is an issue for this team. The Broncos are one of the biggest sporting clubs in Australia. They're up there with the big AFL clubs like Collingwood. This is a team that should be making the top 8 every year with the advantages they have over every other club. They're the biggest club in a very highly populated state. They have huge advantages over all the Sydney clubs in that regard.
Yeah, they got pumped by the Titans. Everyone tipped them except, as I said, except for Piercy and our experts. And I even pointed out to him, like, what are you doing? And he told me, nah, Broncos are gone. He told me last week, Broncos are gone for the year. Like, he really...
Well, he picked it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Gordon Tallis was saying that he was talking about, there's a Las Vegas hangover. Are you telling me that because they went to Las Vegas in March, that's the reason that they're losing games in August?
Well, that doesn't...
give me a break.
What about the Roosters and the Sea Eagles, then?
Exactly. The Vegas hangover, please. It's August. That was back in March. That's not an excuse. That team that lost to the Titans on the weekend, they still had Reece Walsh, they had Corey Oates, they had Katoni Staggs, they had Adam Reynolds. I know they lost Ezra Mam and Payne Haas to injury, but they also had Pat Carrigan, and it's the Titans they were playing against. They lost 46-18. Like, come on. That's a good enough side, even with those injuries. They shouldn't have lost 46-18 to the Titans.
And I think they've got an reliance on Reece Walsh, and he's really out of form.
I mean, he does the odd good thing in games. I mean, he scored those first 2 tries against the Titans, but then he just went missing for the rest of the game. He shows glimpses of brilliance at the moment, but he just doesn't put together a consistent 80 minutes.
He's out of form and has been since the beginning of the year when he's been head knocked quite a few times. I think that's the linchpin for them. They rely too much on him, and he's well out of form, and they don't know what else to do. They lost their forward. Their team was much worse than the one that made the grand final last year, with big names leaving, and they thought they could rely on
Flegler and Farnworth among them.
They were key points to them making the grand final last year, and they lost them. But then
that's on their recruitment, isn't it? That's on their recruitment and retention.
They didn't replace them, and they haven't been able to accommodate for it. And now Payne Haas is having to do too much work up the front to give Reece Walsh room to move. Payne Haas isn't able to do it. He is the best prop in the competition, but he isn't able to do it because the rest of his forwards aren't supporting him, and it's leaving Reece Walsh unable to do anything, and they have an over-reliance on him. So they're overly relying on a couple of players who aren't able to do their work because the rest of the players aren't doing any work.
And that was the other thing about what Tallis said. He kept going on about how, they lost Flegler and Farnworth. Yeah, they did. That's on them. They shouldn't have lost players that they still needed. That's on their recruitment and retention. That's not an excuse for them going poorly. That's a reason for them going poorly, and they should have better recruitment and retention.
And so you go back to that Bulldogs game, right? So Payne Haas ran for 131 metres. Carrigan ran for 175. The rest of the forwards were, 50 metres, 30 metres, 13 metres. 21 metres. And that's they just give the ball to Payne, he'll hit it up.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. Well, they lost Payne Haas and Ezra Mam to injury against the Titans, but they were playing against the Bulldogs, and they got thrashed by the Bulldogs. Yeah. So,
they just give the ball to Payne, he'll do it, and then he has to hit it all up, and then he can't. And then when he's off the field, they can't survive. So, no matter what excuses you make, there is currently an issue with the Broncos' recruitment, and unfortunately for Kevin Walters, their coaching. Like Piercy said, they're gone for the year, mate. I can't see them. They're another one that I can't really see winning for the rest of the year. They do have that bye, which is not going to help them get into the 8. Cowboys this week, they can beat the Eels, but who knows? The Eels are crazy. Warriors handed West Tigers the 3rd spoon in a row this week because the Eels won. They got the Dolphins, who are going to be looking to get into that, and then they got the Storm to finish up. So you'd have to say they're gone.
And we talked about this. We have talked about this a number of times this year, and we did even talk about it before a ball was kicked this year. this hangover from last year's grand final and the way they lost at the Broncos. Now, I know you might say, oh, well, look, that's in the past. That's at the end of last year. But, I mean, does it have a lasting effect on the psychology of players who are involved in a close grand final loss like that, in the sense that if you get a scenario like the one against the Titans where they were, they had a big score put on them, do you sort of go, do they sort of look up at the clock with 20 minutes to go, those players who were a part of that grand final, went so close last year, do they look up at the clock and go, look, we're not going to win this game now, so let's just put the feet up for the rest of the game? We got so close last year. You know what I'm saying? Has the hangover had that much of an effect on this team that where they're in a close fight and then, they were ahead at half time in that game, but then that they go down by a huge margin? Does that then get in their head and they go, oh, look, we're putting the feet up today. We're not going after it today. That's the coach's job. Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely. I'm not making an excuse for them either. That they should have moved on from that grand final.
That's what I agree with you. I think, and that's the coach's job. And that's what I mean. They have a huge problem right now with their recruitment, where they're letting really pivotal people in their team go, and their coach is unable to accommodate. See what happens next year with the Broncos. That's what it'll be. How long Kevin Walters been at the Broncos?
Quite a while now. But he's going to be under some real pressure now, Kevin Walters. It's highly likely that they're not going to be. Well, they're not going to be in the finals this year. We know that now.
I don't think so.
So he's going to be under some serious pressure now.
2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 4 years.
With this roster, to miss this roster should not be ever missing the 8.
No.
And he's going to be under some serious pressure. I think he'll get to start next season. But if they have a poor start to next season, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make it to the end of next season, Kevin Walters.
They finished 14th in 2021. They finished 9th in 2022.
Yeah, that 2022, that was the year where I think they were even in the top 4 with not long left in the season, and then they didn't make the 8.
Yeah. And then 2023... what?
Well, they made the grand final.
Oh, yeah, they did too. Yeah.
And got so close to winning it too. They had it... ripped out of their grasp. They led, I think it was 24.
Last year.
It was 24-8 with not long left in the game, and Nathan Cleary just snatched the premiership trophy out of their hands.
That's certainly 2024. They're probably most likely going to miss the 8. People can come back and hammer us in 3 weeks if they make the 8 now.
I don't think we're going to have to worry about that somehow.
And so next year could be the end of Kevy at the Broncos, because the Broncos don't tolerate 2 years of missing the finals in a row.
No,
they barely tolerate 1.
Yeah, no, if you miss. Good again. If they don't start next year, I don't think he'll even make it to the end of next season. He won't last that long.
And so moving right along to the absolutely shocking revelations that have come out with Kasey Badger being banned from officiating Rabbitohs games
because Gavin Badger works for the Rabbitohs.
What the actual crap?
I just thought, this has been...
How do they come up with this in round 25?
Because he's been working there for 2 years. Yeah. How were they not aware of this?
What is it, round 23?
How did they not act on this earlier? How did it take them 2 years to realise that he was working there? What, did they only look at the TV station putting the camera on the coach's box and go, oh, he works there, I didn't know that. Let's ban Kasey Badger from refereeing Rabbitohs games.
Actual crap.
How are they not aware of this earlier?
Everyone, of course, has to caveat it with, nobody is questioning Kasey Badger's
integrity, yes.
Blah, 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 whatever. But it's logic. There's logic in place for this. There's no way in hell... How many Rabbitohs games has she officiated?
Oh, look, I wouldn't know, but she would have certainly officiated Rabbitohs games in that time. Yeah, exactly. Well, it wouldn't have just been on the weekend. It would have been a number of games.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the fact that the only reason they realised is because it was on TV. You know, you just said it. Like, did it take that? Yeah. It's so weird that it took that. They were on TV, and then it was like, oh, that's right. We should probably check this stuff for every... And then you got to think, like, what other referees have links now that they've ignored? Because that's a really, like, obvious one, you know, like their husband and wife. What other referees have brothers working at different things, or sisters or cousins working at different clubs? What?
Yeah, just to clear that up, she wasn't refereeing, but she was the senior review official. Yeah, she was officiating. So, so I mean, again, we're not questioning her integrity here, but
everyone
we have to caveat.
Everyone has to.
But it's a perception thing, and you know, again, if her husband is working at a club, well, you can't have her officiating their games. And the most alarming thing out of this is that he's been working there for the last 2 years, and they've only acted on it now because they saw him on TV like everybody else. It's very amateur, the whole thing, the way it's gone down.
And like that's... How many others don't they know about because it hasn't been on television?
I picked the wrong time to take a sip of my water. Then it nearly came back out.
It's so crazy. I couldn't. When I read it, I thought she was banned. Well, look, to be honest, I thought like she was banned. When I woke up and read the headline, Kasey Badger banned from officiating Rabbitohs games, I thought, man, what terrible mistake did she make? And then I read it and I'm like, well, she didn't. The NRL did. That is so bad. If they had stewards and stuff like that in rugby league, they'd go back and investigate every single game. You know, they fully would. Like they really like would go back and run a fine tooth comb through every game she's ever been involved in for the Rabbitohs. And they're lucky that NRL doesn't do that kind of thing. It'd create a massive headache. It's so bad. It's the most unprofessional, like amateur hour type thing ever in the history of rugby league officiating.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously she's not gonna, she's not gonna, you know, deliberately make decisions in the Rabbitohs' favour because her husband works there. That's not what we're suggesting here. But it could be something as simple as she might, you know, tip him off on what officials are looking for. What a senior review official, a senior video review official, like the role she had in the Rabbitohs game on the weekend. She might let him know, oh, this is what we're putting the spotlight on at the moment. This is what we're cracking down on at the moment. And he might tell someone at South. It could be something as innocent as that would still be a huge integrity issue.
And that's what I mean about the stewards, right? If you look at the one time that Tom Waterhouse was on, well, he was on a lot, but Tom Waterhouse was on, used to be in the...
Oh, remember those ads?
Oh, yeah. Well, they weren't ads. They were... he was a commentator. But remember, he mentioned in passing or something that some horse was injured or something that his mum trained. And it
he said it to Andrew Johns.
Yeah, and Andrew Johns is friends with John Singleton. It was John Singleton's horse, and
was that more joyous? I think the horse was. Yeah,
and it caused a massive issue and a massive investigation by New South Wales Racing or Australian Racing or whatever. And if NRL had that kind of people in charge of it, that's what would happen. You know, really, like there'd be a massive investigation. In the end, I think John Singleton took all of his horses out of Gay Waterhouse's stable.
So it caused an issue between him and Gay Waterhouse. It was a massive
thing in racing. So it's crazy amateur hour from the NRL, and you know, I think they should go and like look at every single referee consultant at every single club now, basically. But even then, it can be like physios, it can be anything. And the problem is really like from a perception perspective. We've talked about it all year, how wrong the bunker often gets it. And now it throws like a harsh spotlight on that. Like, did Kasey Badger ever get one so glaringly wrong with the Rabbitohs, in the Rabbitohs' favour?
That's why I'm surprised this hasn't come up sooner. I'm surprised it took the TV camera to catch Gavin Badger in their box. Surely the NRL would have lists of employees at every club before each season, and we would be able to go, oh, okay, Gavin Badger works at the Rabbitohs. we better not have Kasey officiating Rabbitohs games.
That was one of the funny things about... I saw a discussion a long time ago about wrestling in the game, and it was on like Sunday Roast or something, and then they said, like, you know... They mentioned that the same thing, like surely the clubs all have to submit to the NRL. These are all of our employees and what they do. And so what would happen is if the NRL banned wrestling coaches, you just have like, you know, John Lua is our shoe shiner. That's how NRL clubs would get around it. He's no longer our wrestling coach, he's our shoe shiner. He just happens to wrestle with the boys. But yeah, like, so, I don't know, it was like a tongue-in-cheek comment about the lists even, but surely that's exactly what they do. Because there's gambling involved. It's fully because there's gambling involved. They have to, like, have a look. Anyway, it's really funny to me and really amateur hour. Finally, with the rugby league,
yes.
Our favourite player, Latrell Mitchell, has been given a holiday from South because he's injured. Last time he was injured and suspended, he was told he wasn't allowed to take his typical injury / suspension holiday, but he went to a rodeo instead of going to the South game on the weekend.
Look, it's not a good look.
I think he's written off the Rabbitohs as well.
It's not a good look. And again, we were, you know, we went through a phase there where we were very complimentary of Latrell during Origin. He contributed to New South Wales' series win over Queensland. But look, this is the reality, and I know he's been in and out of the team yet again. There's always something going on. He's been injured this year and suspended as well. But they're third last on the ladder this year. Again, with him as their marquee player. They had a fade-out last season, which we talked about. They led the competition after 11 rounds and missed the 8 somehow from that position. And again, so this is the second year in a row with Latrell Mitchell as South's... Well, he's their highest paid player, that they've had a complete fade-out and not fired a shot. They're third last on the ladder. This is the issue. Are South Sydney really... Again, everybody knows Latrell Mitchell's a quality player, but are South Sydney getting value for money out of Latrell Mitchell, who's on a $1 million a year salary? If someone's on $1 million a year salary, well, they need to be getting you into the top 8 on that money. And he's not doing it at the moment.
I want to know who gave him permission. Was it Ben Hornby or Wayne Bennett? You know, did he give Wayne Bennett a call and say, hey, can I go on holiday? Did he ask Ben Hornby?
And all of a sudden, after that little bit of resurgence they had, well, now they've just faded out again, the Rabbitohs. Third last. It's been a terrible season for them.
You know, poor Ben Hornby.
So he went to a country rodeo.
Yeah, rodeos are pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
Rodeo sometime on Flow Rodeo.
Nothing wrong with going to a country rodeo, but maybe don't do it on the night where your team are playing and you're contracted to them on $1 million a year, and you should be there supporting them instead of being at a country rodeo.
Rabbitohs have the Storm this week and are going to get pumped. It's a Rabbitohs home game, then the Tigers, Knights and Panthers and Roosters. They could probably beat the Tigers. Sorry, Adam.
That's the thing. Are the Rabbitohs happy with what Latrell Mitchell has dished up this season? Are they happy about it? They're third last on the ladder. And I mean, apart from that really good Origin game he had, has he really done much for South this season?
No, I think what the Souths are kind of happy with this year after the terrible first half of the year is they've avoided the spoon. They achieved that. They got that out of Latrell in those few games over the Origin period when he wasn't injured and he actually played really well. They avoided the spoon. Cool. We've all right, guys. At least we avoided the spoon. Now we don't need to try for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't think their big money owners in Russell Crowe, James Packer, and Mike Cannon-Brooks are going to just be happy with avoiding the spoon as a pass mark.
Yeah, that's what it seems like they're behaving like. That's ridiculous. But poor Ben Hornby. That's it for Rugby League. Finals almost over. Hopefully, we're just trying to organise Piercy to come in next week to discuss the lead up to finals. Awesome. Obviously, the Olympics is on and Australia is dominating.
Yes, going extremely well. This is a really good performance. Australia third on the medal tally, and then we're at the latter stages of the Olympics now. There's not many days to go. The closing ceremony will be Monday morning our time. Mm-hmm. We're having this chat on Wednesday morning, so we're getting to the business end here. Australia third on the medal tally. The USA are first. China are second. France are fourth. So Australia in front of the host nation at the moment. Great Britain are fifth. Let's hope it stays that way. I really hope Australia finish ahead of Great Britain on the medal tally this year. I just wanted to give particular credit to some multiple gold medal winners that Australia have had so far. Molly O'Callaghan's had three gold medals, a silver and a bronze in the swimming. Kaylee McEwen, 2 gold medals, 1 silver and 2 bronze in the swimming. Ariane Titmus, 2 gold and 2 silver in the swimming. Shayna Jack, 2 gold medals in the swimming as well. What a turnaround from her. Congratulations to her. It's a great story. And Jess Fox in the canoe kayak slalom, 2 gold medals, and her sister Noemi won a gold medal as well the other day. So well done to the Fox sisters. So there's some athletes who I think deserve a notable mention there.
Yeah, I was we got a gold, bronze in the. Is it gold in the tennis as well? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the men's doubles. John Peers and Matt Ebden winning the gold medal there. Well done to them.
And one of the ones that I saw was Arissa True won the gold in the skateboarding. I believe she's the
awesome.
What was it? Youngest Australian gold medalist or something like that. Winning gold in the skateboarding. Skateboarding is like it's a long-term thing. So Tony Hawk competed till he was like 49 from the age of like 12.
Is skateboarding something that anyone over 35 shouldn't participate in?
Seriously, Tony Hawk still goes, man. But yeah, that was a really cool one. And Penny Smith won in the shooting. You know, I love the shooting. It's the Turkish guy. Just rocks up cold. Raw dogs the shooting. They have so much stuff now in shooting, it's kind of become a bit ridiculous. With all the one to prevent blur, one to zoom in, like all this kind of thing. Dude just rocks up, hand in pocket, bang. It's amazing. There's some really cool stories coming out of the Olympics.
Yes, bear in mind the break dancing is still to come. Yeah, it's a 2-day event.
That's on the 10th.
Yeah, it's Friday the 9th and Saturday the 10th in Paris, so that'll be a day later here. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. A 2-day event, the breakdancing still to come. It's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and wrestling is still coming too. That's wrong. The judo's been awesome. I've been watching the highlights, but it has been hard to watch anything. So the breakdancing starts at midnight and finishes at 10 a.m. or something.
Our time, the time zone has not been favourable to us. Those swimming finals were at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's the worst possible time. It's too early to get up that early, and it's too late to stay up that late. It's not a good time zone for us. Thankfully, LA will be better because it'll at least be sort of mid-morning here, 10 or 11 or midday here when the finals are on. And obviously Brisbane in 2032 will be perfect for us viewer-wise, but this Paris time zone for us is just terrible. That European time just doesn't stack up for us.
So there has been some awesome performances and awesome things, but there's, of course, been lots of controversy.
Yes, there has. China's Pan Zhanli won a controversial men's 100-metre freestyle final with Australia's Kyle Chalmers winning the silver. Somehow he won 1.08 seconds quicker than Chalmers in a 100-metre freestyle race. In a 100-metre freestyle race, over 1 second is a long time, and against Kyle Chalmers as well. So he broke his own world record, Zhanli, finishing in 46.4 seconds. Are we really buying this? I don't know if I'm buying it.
I'm not saying that China would have state-sponsored performance-enhancing drugs on their athletes. But I am definitely saying they use genetic modification to improve the quality of their athletes. China invented CRISPR, the genetic modification tool to turn babies into superhumans, So one of the things about the world right now is anything that China does is going to be controversial. We all know that it's possible for countries to have state-sponsored doping programs that go from 1985 to 2016. 1984, whatever the year was, to 2016. We know that. You know how we know it? Because Russia did it and still don't compete in the Olympics. It's irrelevant because they just send the white flag people and they could all be doping as well still, because as if Russia cares. And China is no different. America could also be doing the same thing, and Australia could also be doing the same thing. The thing you got to look at is it's more likely that China has, because China has history. China has that swimmer that destroyed the sample and got banned for 8 years.
Sun Yang.
Yeah, China has a whole bunch of them failed before the Worlds or whatever, and were still allowed to compete. All the Chinese swimmers.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them failed, but were still allowed to compete. And China has like a stranglehold over a lot of world sporting organisations. The country of China, like the Chinese government. And so when you have a whole bunch of swimmers fail their drug tests and still be allowed to compete, the same thing can happen.
I'm worried about criticising Russia because our website might get hacked or something if this goes.
Or they could launch a nuclear bomb against. I've just been listening to Nuclear War Scenario, the most disturbing book in the history of the world. And I watched the movie War Games, Matthew Broderick from 1983. No one can win a nuclear war.
But what are they? Those independent athletes from Russia or something that they compete as? I mean, they shouldn't even be able to compete like that.
That's what I mean, because the reason they're banned is because it was state-sponsored doping program that went from as far back as 1984 to 2016 when they were caught. I think it was 2016. And they still are allowed to compete. Russian athletes are still allowed to compete. And of course Russia would just continue doing the state-sponsored doping. Because the way doping works, is the tests look for certain things. If you know what they're looking for, you can take other things to hide them. And then they keep your samples, and then in years and years and years and years, they come up with new ways to test. And if something like Russia, everyone finds out Russia's cheating, they go back and test all the way back as far back as 1984. So they had medals stripped from that far back. Like, that's actually what happened. In 2016 or whatever. It was 2016, right? They went back and tested all the samples they had all as far back as 1984 and found that they'd been doing it since then. So much doping, and that's why the enhanced game. That's one of the reasons for the inspiration of the enhanced games, because everyone knows they're doing it. Well, I've talked about it before in jiu-jitsu. There's no doping, blood testing in jiu-jitsu, except for the black belt podium finishes in the World Championships at the IBJJF. So it's very specific, and everybody in jiu-jitsu calls it an IQ test, not a drug test. Because you know the exact date and time that you're going to be tested. So 3 months before that or whatever, you cycle off. You've still got all these years and years and years of performance-enhancing drug use, and then on that day you're going to get tested. Oh, I'm clean. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. And 1 second in a 100-meter freestyle, it's... Because there's another misconception about performance-enhancing drugs is that I take the drugs before I compete and it makes me faster. That's not how it works. I take the drugs during training and it allows me to get enhanced muscle growth and faster recovery so I can train more and lift more. So it's during the training. And drug testing organizations will go around and they'll test them randomly and stuff like that. But the whole Russian one was the head of WADA, World Anti-Doping Authority, in Russia was the guy that Russia got to do the doping.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
If anybody thinks that these guys, as I said, America could be doing it just as much, Australia could be doing it just as much, but these other countries like China have history. And this is suspect as a second off.
And this is Kyle Chalmers. This is one of the best swimmers in history. Won the 100-metre freestyle gold in 2016 in Rio. And we're to believe that this Chinese swimmer has gone over a second better than him, legitimately, has pulled away from the rest of the field. Again, Kyle Chalmers, the silver medalist, one of the best swimmers in history. Are we really buying this? So Russia this year, they're competing as their athletes are falling under the Individual Neutral Athletes Delegation, or AIN. But as you pointed out, they can still have state-sponsored doping in that scenario. They can still take medals away from other athletes. This is the problem.
Do you think Russian fans and... Russian citizens and Russian athletes don't consider themselves Russian just because the Olympics label them as AIN? So
it's weak from the IOC to allow that.
Yeah. 2022, This is a Chinese swimming thing. 23 Chinese swimmers 7 months before the 2020 Tokyo Games held in 2021 because of the coronavirus. 23 failed doping tests and were cleared to compete. Several went on to win medals, including 3 gold. 11 of the 23 who tested positive for those games are participating in Paris now.
Unbelievable.
So, like, that's what they have.
Spineless
history.
IOC.
No one, they have history. That's why you can say China, Russia, they're doping. Something like Cuba, they don't dope. They definitely genetically modify. Have you seen those Cuban wrestlers and stuff like that? Yoel Romero? They definitely genetically modify. So if you look at Yoel Romero, who's like 45, but is the most jacked human being in existence. He was an Olympic wrestler. When he got popped for drugs, he sued the supplement company and won because there's no way he was on steroids. But if you look at that guy, you would go, that guy's on steroids. Genetic modification for sure. State sponsored, definitely. Meanwhile, Novak Djokovic has finally achieved the last thing he needs so can retire. It was an epic 3-set match against Carlos.
I think it was straight sets, but I think they were both tiebreakers, so it was close. Yeah.
Because they only play 3 sets at the Olympics,
Yeah, they do, yeah. I watched the first set. The match started about 10 o'clock p.m. our time on, I think it was on Sunday night. First set went for an hour and a half.
Oh, my God.
So 11:30, I thought, I can't get through anymore. I went to bed. But, yeah, Djokovic getting it done in straight sets there at the Olympics over Carlos Alcaraz in the gold medal match. So that now means he's secured a Golden Slam. Golden Slam is earned when an individual player wins all 4 Grand Slams and an Olympic gold medal in singles. So apart from Djokovic, only 4 other players have achieved the feat. Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, Andre Agassi and Steffi Graf. Those 2 are a couple, coincidentally. So a lot of talent in that that relationship. But yeah, so there you go. Djokovic is in really good company there. And look, you got to say that he's not done yet. If he can beat Carlos Alcaraz in a gold medal match and on the clay as well, Carlos Alcaraz has just won the French Open on the Roland Garros clay. Djokovic beats him. So Djokovic, unlike a lot of his contemporaries now, like Nadal, Andy Murray, who's just retired, thankfully, finally, Stan Wawrinka, Djokovic is the same age as all those players, or a very similar age to all those players, but he is not done by any stretch of the imagination, still winning Olympic gold medals. This is a player who's not done with yet.
Really curious. The next major is obviously the Australian Open, so I'm really curious. That's why I'm pumped.
Oh, we got the US Open and then the Australian Open.
The US Open. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, but the Australian Open, obviously, with his record at the Australian Open, winning it 10 times, he's going to be right in with a shot of winning that again. He's going to try
and win the US Open. When's the US Open?
That'll be late. It's usually late August, early September, so it'll be later this month, actually. Not too long after the Olympics. The US Open will be on.
26th of August starts 11:30 p.m. our time.
Yeah, so not far away. Djokovic's only other medal at the Olympics came with a bronze in the 2008 Beijing Games in the singles as well. So yeah, really well done to him.
Yeah. Well, we can move on because producer John's going to have to cut this and work it out. Meanwhile, over in the soccer, Matildas failed to get past the group stage. They were terrible. The Boomers also didn't get past their group stage of the basketball.
And look, I know you're a basketball fan. I get that, but I just think, and look, I'll say it about tennis as well. And I wrote an article about it last week. I think it was. These sports that we watch all the time, like basketball, soccer, tennis. They're not what the Olympics is about. The Olympics is about the unsung heroes in unsung, low-profile sports getting their moment in the sun. I don't want to turn on the Olympics, and I know I have watched some of the tennis. Look, I am a tennis person, but in generally speaking, tennis players, they get their moment in the sun. They've got 4 majors every year. Yeah. The NBA is on all the time. Soccer... They have their own World Cup every 4 years that's even bigger than the Olympics itself. The EPL's on all the time. You don't really want to be tuning into the Olympics, watching these sports that we watch all the time anyway. This is a time of year where you want to watch your athletics. Or a time every 4 years where you want to watch the athletics, you want to watch the swimming, you want to watch these sports like skateboarding, like breakdancing that you never see. You just want to watch these lower profile sports.
Non-mainstream sports. And, remember cricket's going to be in the 2028 one.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. But anyway, the Matildas had a statue, have a statue being built in Brisbane for coming fourth at the 2023 World Cup. I don't think they'll be getting a statue after being knocked out in the group stage of the Olympics.
Yeah. They shouldn't get a statue anyway, but it kind of shows the Matildas' run at the World Cup last time was, an exception to the rule, and if they don't, they need to have some improvement. Like, it's overinflated. They definitely shouldn't get a statue, and them falling out of the Olympics because Sam Kerr was missing and stuff is.
No, look, if they had won the World Cup, all right, a statue's fine. But you got to win the World Cup to get a statue. Coming fourth, no, that's not statue worthy.
No, it's so silly.
Because and we've talked about it before. The problem with that is, well, what happens if they do actually win the World Cup? And then what do you do?
They get a stadium named after them.
Do they get? I wouldn't know.
Statue in Sydney Harbour, the size of the Statue of Liberty, like absolute nonsense. And so. Look, I've seen this constant criticism of the Olympics coverage. As I said, I haven't watched any of the Olympics because, man, it's at the terrible times. But Channel 9 has not been doing a good job. Their choices, as far as I'm aware of what to show at any given time, have been constantly criticised. They're not showing things like Australians that are in box seats to win gold medals. Instead, they're showing other stuff. And I know there was some controversy about that Novak Djokovic final.
Yeah, so I actually did an article on it. Was it yesterday or I think it was the day before. I think it was Monday. I did an article on our website about this now. So Novak Djokovic, I talked about Novak Djokovic taking on Rafael Nadal in the men's singles. Now, look, I know I have my views on that tennis shouldn't be in the Olympics because, it's time for lower profile athletes to have their moment in the sun. But look, it's not as if... This is the thing. They showed the Matildas, a replay of a Matildas game over that match. It was a replay. Djokovic was playing Nadal live at that time, and they showed a replay of a Matildas game ahead of it. I mean, that's the thing. You can have your view one way or another whether tennis should be in the Olympics or not, but if it's in it, right? And Djokovic was playing Nadal. These are the two best tennis players of all time taking on one another at the Olympics, and you're showing a replay of a Matildas game ahead of it. So there's that issue with Channel 9's coverage, their poor selection of sports, when to show them, when not to show them. This performance of Karl Stefanovic on the morning show, I think it's today in Paris, it's just been a terrible performance from him. He's not doing any research. Clearly, he looks like he doesn't want to be there. He's just going through the motions completely. He was talking about the Matilda's upcoming game against Zambia, and he described the Zambian team as a very athletic team. That's the best he could do, a very athletic team at the Olympics. Like, come on, Carl. Like, seriously. And... Look,
they're a soccer team.
I mean that's funny, but I'll tell you what wasn't funny, and him and Sarah Arbo, his co-host, thought it was funny. She couldn't even pronounce the name of the Australian high jumper who won the silver medal. Her name is Nicola Olieslagers, and look, I actually took the time to find out how to pronounce her name correctly, unlike Karl Stefanovic or Sarah Arbo, who Sarah Arbo couldn't pronounce the name properly, and her and Stefanovic had a nice giggle about it, thought it was really funny. She only, as a high jumper, she only gets her moment in the sun once every 4 years. The least that TV presenters on huge pay packets could do is get her name right when she's competing and winning a silver medal for her country.
Yeah, and those medals are everything to Olympic athletes, actually. Seriously, they're everything to Olympic athletes. That's how they now there's a bit of a controversy now because you used to not get paid to be in the Olympics, and now some countries are paying people a lot if they medal, like a lot.
Look, I don't have a problem with that.
Well,
I mean, they're winning a medal at the Olympics.
My problem with it is the Olympics should pay them. You know, that's my problem with it. The Olympics should pay them. But the majority of money for some of these lower level sports come from endorsements after winning a medal. That's why a bunch of the guys who got the Russian medals after the Russians were all stripped and stuff were like, what the hell am I going to do with this 20 years later? You know, I missed my time in the sun. And so they should spend the time to get it right, because that's her winning a medal. I can't remember what her name was, but her winning a medal.
Nicola Olislager.
Yeah, her winning a medal is a big thing for her individually as well as for Australia. And then she's going to be able to use that to continue like her show, because like, nobody can ever think that these like athletics, pole vaults, stuff like that, sports are getting heaps of money from it. They rely 100% on endorsements. I listened to a podcast recently for the I'm so sorry, bro, I can't remember your name. It's going to come to me after this podcast. For the men's toboggan, Australian men's toboggan, there's only four people in Australia who can pilot a toboggan, be the pilot. There's the pilot, the stopper, the runner, whatever, you know. There's like 4 people in Australia who can actually do it, let alone qualify for the Olympics and Winter Olympics for it. And he was talking about how they entirely 100% rely on endorsements. Government doesn't give them any money. So these, like you said, this is the Olympics is their chance for the moment of the sun, and it's show some pride in the media. They should show some pride, not just because this girl has done something amazing, but also because she's going to rely on people knowing her name.
Yeah, 100%. And Sarah Arbo, she could have just asked her producer what the name was in the ad break before they were going to talk about it. She could have just done that, but no, couldn't be bothered. Really poor to get something like that wrong and just to laugh about it. I mean, the producers do all the work for those presenters anyway. It's not hard to just ask a producer, how do I pronounce this name? And the producer either would know themselves, or if they didn't know, they would find out and tell the presenter. Very easy to find out, very lazy presenting. Yeah. And just a really disappointing display from Channel 9. I thought the Olympics was a lot better on Channel 7. Channel 7, of course, had Bruce McAvaney doing the athletics, one of the best commentators of all time. Channel 9 have got Jared Waitley doing the athletics. Let me tell you, Jared Waitley is no Bruce McAvaney. He's really not up to it. It's just boring commentary from Jared Waitley. You'd much rather Bruce McAvaney calling the athletics, absolutely. And this Mark Taylor commentating the diving, look, I mean, clearly, and I said this in my article as well that I wrote the other day, obviously he's been kept on Channel 9's books after they lost the cricket rights, and they've obviously, as you would know, businesses are going to try and save money in a big spending exercise like covering the Olympics. It's a lot better to just get people who are already on your payroll to call something like the diving. Yeah. For someone like Mark Taylor, who's a cricket commentator, it's a lot easier to just get him to do it, seeing as he's under contract, than pay another freelancer to do it and save some money that way. But, I mean, he's only diving. I mean, he was a great cricketer, Mark Taylor, the former Australian captain. But his only diving experience came when he was taking catches in the slips for Australia. It's not diving in the pool.
I like you listen to the Snoop Dogg commentary. That's my favourite commentary.
Yeah, well,
because that guy knows he doesn't know anything. Yeah. That's the thing. He knows he doesn't know anything. He's not trying to pretend to be an expert.
And I know Roy and HG have been doing a 1-hour show every day on the ABC radio as well. They have a really good take on it. That's really entertaining for anyone looking at a light-hearted look at it. But I think you've either got to go with the expert or you go your Roy and HG or Snoop Dogg. Yeah,
exactly.
It's one or the other, right?
You can't get a guy who wants to pretend to be an expert just because he played some other sport that has nothing to do with your sport.
That's the thing. Like Mark Taylor, he was a good cricket commentator, but he's no Roy and HG or Snoop Dogg in terms of entertainment value.
At the last one, it was Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart. For the American coverage, that's the bomb.
But this is why you get Carl I'll tell you what, Carl Stefanovic, you can tell he's really got no idea about sport, doesn't know anything about it. This is why you get people like him on these shows because, well, he's on salary with the network much cheaper to just get him to do it. They're not going to have to pay him extra than getting some freelancer to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it for the Olympics. We forgot to do the medal update yesterday. We'll do another one today on the social media. Australia continues to go.
Still third. They're holding that third spot on the medal tally.
There's a whole bunch of great stories from the Olympics as usual, with a bunch of countries winning their first gold medals. I think Indian female just made the finals in the in the women's wrestling, which will mean she'll be the first Indian female to ever win an Olympic medal.
Well done, that's awesome.
See, there's stuff like that I love about the Olympics, and as you said, there's things that are little that you don't get to see. There's been a whole bunch of controversy in the judo. If you're fully into judo, it's so funny. There's been a lot less ippon in the judo than normal, and there's some horrific things like broken arms and stuff in the judo.
But at least that's a sport that you never talk about it. That's an example of a sport where they deserve the spotlight once every 4 years.
And wrestling starts, I think, today as well, so I'm pumped for that. I'll be actually paying a lot of attention to that. Onto social media blower-uppers. The General on episode 86. We didn't do social media blower-uppers in the last episode because Gabby was here.
Yes.
So we'll get back to you now. He said, I don't buy into Queenslanders. I'm more passionate than us, because we had that big conversation in that episode. Remember 2005? After 3 New South Wales series wins, Origin is dead. They lured GI, who had no business playing for Queensland. So don't tell me about Pride in Jersey when they cheapened theirs, bringing a blue into their inner sanctum. They mocked us for getting 70k to a dead rubber once, but don't sell out their measly 52k stadium for dead rubbers. Then come with excuses like ticket pricing. They're hypocrites, and even you boys pointed out the hypocrisy around picking and sticking. Yes, the General. You're 100% right, as usual.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, they certainly weren't more passionate than New South Wales this year.
Let's see them pick and stick next year. They didn't even pick and stick during this.
The loyalty is a myth. They're not loyalty to the players. They're loyal to winning.
Yeah. As I said, constantly said, it's easy to pick and stick when you keep winning.
Yeah.
I've touched on it a few times. When the tips went up the other day for the Dragons game, of course, everybody tipped the Storm, because who the hell is going to tip the Dragons?
Yeah, nobody would have tipped the Dragons.
And Vic jumps on straight away. It was within 5 minutes to hammer me about how I'm still not showing any loyalty.
Who are you going to tip this week?
Well, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I do my research Thursday morning. That's why our tips come out Thursday midday, because they're always waiting for me. Then straight after I think social media replied that Johnny's winning the tipping comp. So last week, me and you in the experts tipping comp, me and you actually took the lead.
Oh, did we really? Yeah, so we were in front of.
Yeah, but unfortunately this week. So as Vic said after the game, well, there you go. Yeah. I hope you're leading after the Dragons win, John. No. Mitchell Pearce has just taken the lead with his Titans pick, though, because he also picked the Storm.
So we're not in front.
No, so last week we got in front.
Oh, right. Okay.
This week, Pearcey's taken it over. We'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, right.
But it's all close now, except for Julie Snook, she's dominating Bryce in the AFL, so that's all that matters. And then, as I said, we've got the award for the dumbest comment on the internet. Mm-hmm. So there was a video I was actually forgot to check TikTok. We got hammered by Bulldogs fans on TikTok.
Yeah, look, again, we said it earlier, we'll say it again. You have to keep in mind that we had that conversation after they lost to the Cowboys, and at that time they were in danger of missing the top 8. Obviously now with 2 wins since then, they are not in danger of missing the top 8. It's highly likely now that they will make the top 8.
It's funny because some people were replying on that and saying, dude, this is obviously they're talking about an old game. But in a clip about Craig Gower talking about fatigue in games when you're 12, down to 12 men in rugby league. Now, this is Craig Gower, who played State of Origin in 2005 in one of the hardest games.
Sorry, was this the conversation we had the other day?
No, it was
a while ago. Yeah.
So it's talking about 12 when you're down to 12 men, how fatigue affects you and it makes it harder to attack and defend.
Yeah.
It's Craig Gower, who played for Australia, played rugby union, who won a premiership, who played State of Origin.
Captained a premiership win.
Grip and Rip, smartest person on the internet, commented, "So boys, going by what I'm looking at, you have no idea how fatigue can hit fast, especially when performing at such a high level."
So what did Craig say in the comment?
He said it's like you can't, the fatigue hits you really fast and it's hard to keep up to date up with scoring. Like it can also affect your attack. It doesn't just affect your defense. So Craig Gower doesn't know what it's like for fatigue to hit you at such a high level.
Yeah, that's. I don't know where that comment's coming from. It's to put it nicely, it's not a very well informed comment.
Like it's. I think because the question is like, the clip is me asking the question like, how does it affect you when it goes down the 12? And he goes through. It's only like a minute clip, obviously, but he goes through like how it makes it harder to attack, how it makes it harder to.
That's the thing. It's a good question that you asked, and I think I asked him a similar thing on Friday. I think I did, because it's easy to go, oh yeah, you're one player down, so that makes it really hard. But it's good to know the specifics of that. Like what does it really impact on a team? Having one less player, like how much more petrol does it take out of your tank? What does it have more of an impact on that may not, be obvious to the naked eye?
It's because it was especially telling for this year in that game 1 of Origin, right? Like where New South Wales had the better stats, but couldn't win and got smashed. And I think I've said it before, like if you fed the stats without the score into an AI machine and said who won this game, they would say New South Wales must have won the game because they had more tackles inside the opposition 20, they had more attacking plays, they had more meters gained, they had more ball, they had less, I don't know about errors, but they had all the good stats. But yeah, to say Craig Gower has no idea how fatigue can hit fast, especially when performing at such a high level, has to be the dumbest statement ever made on the internet.
Yeah.
On the internet.
He's really good to listen to, Craig. If you haven't checked it out yet, worth checking out the podcast we did with him on Friday. Really interesting insights. He's great to listen to.
Yeah. I wish you could get more in coaching. That's it for the week. So, what is it? Saturday we're doing the Saturday is that Dragons Bulldogs game. Good luck to you and your boys. And
yes, we will see how that goes, and we'll talk about it next week with Mitchell Pearce. It sounds like. Hopefully.
Well, he's keen, so we just got to work out the day. So, don't forget to follow at SmartB app on all things social. Sign up for your tips of the day. More good things are coming, so make sure you're signed up and you get early access to all the amazing new features. Bye, everybody. Bye, Producer Chairs. Bye, Dan.
Thanks, John. We'll see you next week, mate.